Hello everyone, let's talk some Ventru? This is my Primogen and Ready deck. This is a deck I really like. It's probably one of the more powerful decks I've managed to put together. Next only to Gremlins, which is easily my most powerful deck. This is a deck that runs Weirich Waldberg. He is a not Primogen, who gives all Primogen that you control +1 stealth on all their actions. Good discipline spread, having superior fortitude and inferior celerity, and still superior dominate and presence. He is an 8 cap, little high, but still good. The rest of the deck is basically Primogen. So you got Eugene, really good, best spread of disciplines for the deck. Rough that he's an 8 cap, and we'll talk about why that is in just a little bit, but still a great series of disciplines for the deck. And the bonus dodge, not irrelevant. Grassus, also very good in the deck, decent discipline spread, and the added ability of attempt and fail, stay locked. Just a nice little, sweet piece of something on top. Pug Jackson is right here with our nice celerity, fortitude going on, good discipline spread, decent capacity at 6. A lot of what you want in a vampire in this deck. Thomas is kind of we could take a lot more than we could give, or however you want to phrase that. Thomas just is here. The annoying part is I get Thomas a lot when I play this deck. I think like 60-70% of the time I've seen Thomas in my opening crypt, and I hate it every time. That burn a pool when he goes to torpor thing has been more relevant than it ever should be. And Victor Pelletier. Pelletier. Very hard name to say because I don't speak French. I believe that's French. Somebody else can correct me later on if I'm wrong. Nice ability though. Primogen, when you want to make him Primogen for a 5 cap, does make him a 6 cap really that burns a. I guess he's a 5 cap that you pay a pool for. Let's say what it is. But very good discipline spread for that cost. You get your fortitude, you get your celerity, and in a pinch, if you're really having a politics problem, you can make him a prince or just a car instead. I have had a situation where it was most beneficial to turn him into a Justicar, and it played out really well for the game. So nice versatility, but most often you're going to be making him a Primogen. But that capacity is really nice at 5. For Masters, we're running Effective Management. Gotta have it. We got a lot of vampires we want to get through, which is also why we're running 4 wider view. We really want to get diversity here, and if we end up with 4 Waldbergs, we just sit in the corner and cry and hope that we drew a wider view or an Effective Management to save us. Otherwise, we're running 2 copies of Perfectionist. With the stealth that we're getting in the deck, you'll see that it's sometimes just free blood for nothing. We're running a Regarin's Hold, or Regar Hargens, again, not very good at non-Merca words. But this card is nice against a handful of decks, basically stops, or at least slows down bleed bounce. It's a narrow minds for a specific card against a specific player, but very, very useful card, either defensively or offensively. I like it. A lot of people don't because it is a very expensive card at 2 pool. Has to be played during the unlock phase of another player, and the reaction has to already be in their ash heap. But I've found good success with it, so I'm keeping it up. Traditionalist is in here as well. I'm not quite sure about whether or not I want to keep this in here and whether or not this will just become another Perfectionist. For right now, it's been situational useful. Having the ability to play Protected Jurisdicts because I have all these Primogen is pretty good and can sometimes result in me being the deciding factor in a vote. Sometimes just having Primogen titles is enough as well. We're running an Uptown Hunting Ground because we got Ventru. Why wouldn't we? Ventru Headquarters, same reason. Also can go really nicely with Traditionalist. 4 copies of Vessel because we need to move blood, and sometimes it's down and sometimes it's up. So the lane doesn't quite work well for us. And 2 copies of Wash because when we stop a master, we're really just stopping a master that's very specific to what's happening. It's not about like making sure that they don't have a master phase or they just lose that master. So Wash kind of gets the job done the way we want it. Only downside I find in Wash is the Predator Prey restriction, but getting the master back is a big deal, and sometimes the don't replace until unlock is rough, but overall I'd say it's fine. Also running 8 copies, so for actions we're running 8 copies of Enchant Kindred. We're using these a lot for put other vampires, but almost as equally for bleeding. This card has great versatility in being both things, just like Govern does. A lot of people don't like that it's only 2. I personally don't necessarily like it as well, but I feel like in this deck it's fit pretty well. Also running 4 copies of Entrancement because, again, versatility, nice bleed card, nice steal an ally card. Never know when you need to steal an ally, but if you don't, just bleed with it. Be happy. Running 2 copies of Heart in the City. I don't know if I like this card or not. Whenever I put it on somebody, it just never goes anywhere. It almost like it puts a giant target on your vampire, and not just in the attack method, but also like in the play around method. So people are always just waiting for that bleed of 3. Sometimes just doesn't feel as good. So I'm not sure if this card will stick around or not. I'm looking forward to any opinions people might have on it. And then Mind Numb here. People are going to kill me for saying this, or at least like argue. I don't like this card. It's so often that I end up playing and they never have an unlocked vampire. It's like you play your first Mind Numb and nobody leaves vampires unlocked anymore. Like the hope here is that because we're a bleed heavy deck, which you'll see down here with the heirs, that your opponent is going to want to keep people unlocked, but it doesn't end up working that way. And it's really cool because you get potentially 2 stealth Mind Numbs, but oh well. Then we're running 1 of Noble Blood for Waldberg. If we can get it on him, that's great. Now he himself gives himself +1 stealth because it's not other. Running, like I said earlier, 5 copies of Air. Very nice when you have it to get that bleed through with the extra damage. Also happen to be playing a couple of Toreador. The only reason Thomas isn't entirely terrible in this deck. Well, and he's a Primogen. Obs. Also, we're playing 7 copies of Forced March because a lot of our vampires qualify for Forced March. You got 4 vampires in the crypt that do, and your basically star vampire does. So good stuff there. 5 copies of Perfect Paragon. Very versatile. Either -1 intercept when you need it, or 3 bonus votes in a political action you're never doing. But still versatile if we ever have a Anarch Revolt or something else on the table that needs to be burned. Also running a pair of Scalpel Tongues. Very nice card to have in certain situations. We have obviously enough vampires to be able to play it when we need it. And Eugene can play it at Superior, which is pretty nice when it happens. If you don't, getting somebody to lose their votes and lock is never a downside. 1 copy of Poison Pill. I have personally liked Poison Pill a lot more than I have liked Delaying Tactics, but I know people's mileage varies with it. I think this card is great against Ancient Influence. I think this card is great against Reigns of Power. So I think this is a better card in many situations to play when you have it, and you really don't need to run a lot of them. Sometimes I have like shaken up the number of these. I'll like tell people that this is what's in the deck, and then later on change out a couple of cards to throw them off for a surprise. But Poison Pill's really nice. Protected District is, in my opinion, almost better than a Bleed Bounce. Maybe even situationally better than a Bleed Bounce. When you reduce the bleed and not end up creating some sort of bounce cycle, you kind of change the way that people play. And you don't want to be like too aggressive, and this deck is already kind of aggressive with what it's doing, right? We've got a pretty heavy bleed package, we've got a little bit of a control package going on here, and we have permanent stealth. So we want to like keep our aggression level high, but if we play a card that's going to be bouncing bleeds on top of it, we're going to end up in a situation where our prey is going to get very weak, and other people are going to think about like Maybe we need to stop a potential juggernaut problem. Protected District doesn't do that. You just shrink the vote, you shrink the bleeds, no big deal. You can also occasionally use it to make a deal with somebody, throwing 3 votes to either pass or fail an action when need be. So very, very nice card. Very, very nice card. I think the versatility alone makes it in some ways better than a bleed bounce, but I know it's close. Also running 8 copies Majesty because you want to combat ends here, and more than half the crypt has superior presence, so do it. And of course Narrow Minds because we're not playing bleed bounce and we're playing the hold, so we can end up with a deflection that costs somebody 3, and that's beneficial because obviously we're airing here and we're enchant kindreding here. So I think the way I have this package set with the Narrow Minds and no bleed bounce, we really do benefit pretty well because we still have a solution to all the problems that a normal bleed deck would have to deal with without putting ourselves in a much more frustrating scenario. So anyway, let me know what you think below, and yeah, take care.